This is one of my longest running and most frustrating projects at the moment. This is the red coat. I made it when I was quite a bit thinner than I am now. So unfortunately, I got to a point where the coat no longer fit me. And I thought, well, easy enough, let's pull it apart and figure out where the pattern's wrong and then just expand on it. The main problems with this coat is not so much on the front. One of the problems is a problem I made for myself, is the waistline is too high. I didn't really understand when I made this where the waist should be in relation to my body, and I placed it about here when my natural waist is actually about here. It's all made of leftovers. So the main body of it is cotton velvet from some velvet curtains. The fur is from an old fur coat that was badly damaged, which was rescued. I think it's rabbit fur. I'm not 100% sure. It's definitely real, and I wouldn't normally use new real fur, but this was a case of, if I didn't use it, it was going to be thrown away. That seemed a bit wasteful. So ethically, I'm okay with real fur in this application. Around the back, you can see it's got this triple cape. Now this is one of the things I really liked on the Regency coats that I saw. They had this triple rain cape sort of a thing. So I did my best guess at that. The only problem I've found with this is when it's windy, it all blows up because there's no weight to it at all, which is a little bit of a problem. Other than that, this section, I'm actually happy to leave it as it is. I may put some interfacing in just to give it a little bit more weight. Other than that, this can stay as is. This might look a bit strange if you're used to a modern jacket shape, because on these, the shaping for the sides is actually on this seam here. So there's no centre back seam and there are no side seams. And instead, you make pretty much all of your adjustments on this curve. So it's actually really difficult to get this the right size. However, the fit that you get from this cut is absolutely worth it, especially on the back. Now unfortunately, because of the extra size I am now, this is too small. It's not so bad across the upper shoulders. It's a little bit tight around this area, but it's mostly as you come down to the waist that it gets to be a problem. So what I've done to try and fix this issue is I've actually started to redraft the pattern. The mannequin has been a huge help. When I first made the coat, I believe I flat drafted it. I don't think I had a mannequin when I did it, so there was a lot of make the pattern, try it on, take it off, alter it, make the pattern, try it on. It took forever. As soon as I put the pieces on this mannequin to the size the coat was, I could immediately see some problems with it. The most obvious one was the length. So this is the mock-up bodice at the moment, which is why it's in this random fabric. And I still have some modifying to do on this. You can see just how big these lapels actually are. This is with seam allowance as well, so they do shrink down a little bit. The point with these was they were supposed to come like right out to the shoulder point, because then it covers up completely like that. So it works as a really, really good windbreak. And there's a spider there, hello. As I was saying, when you fold this over, it's an excellent windbreak. It keeps you very, very warm, and because these are fur lined, even more so. You don't need a scarf with this one. It's single-breasted rather than double-breasted. Usually with the Regency coats, they did, in this style anyway, tend to be a double-breasted one. I haven't done that here, and I don't think I will be, but we'll see. The front's fairly simple. It's just a straight box on the front, nothing fancy, but I've made the waist longer. Now I think I need to bring the waist up to around about here. The armholes are another one of the issues. I have this bagginess here, which I don't really like, and to remove that I've got to take it out of this curved seam here. And this is where it gets tricky on these patterns, because as soon as you start taking out on this area, it moves around and messes everything else up. But you can see roughly with the back how flattering a line this is. Now, the bodice on these is made of just 3 panels. You have the main one on the back here, and because of these curves, it visually pinches the waist in and makes the shoulders look really quite wide, even if you yourself are not really that shape. So it's incredibly flattering, and it gives a really nice silhouette on the back. The shoulder seams come over quite a long way towards the back. They're not like up here where you'd expect. They actually drop all the way down over here. So your actual seam starts there and ends here. Again, this helps with giving you that flattering silhouette, because you haven't got like the bulk of fabric up here. It's shifted down, so you end up with a very different sort of look on the back. Obviously no side seam, because everything from this collar here all the way around to your seam here is one piece, and it's very, very difficult to adjust. So this is really where I'm at with this at the moment, and I need to fiddle about a bit more with this bodice and try and get the shapes pulled in and just get everything sort of tweaked so it fits the mannequin. Because once I have it fitting the mannequin how I want to, it should then fit me. Once I've got this version of it together, the skirt section doesn't matter, because the skirt section is just rectangles and triangles. I'm not even going to make a pattern for that, because it's not really needed. This is the part that matters. The bodice matters. The sleeves actually fit very well on me, so I think I can just use the original sleeve pattern from this coat, so that shouldn't be a problem. Same with the collar and the cape, that all remains as was. A few adjustments later, and the fit's a lot better now. Now, when I first made this, I actually went in quite a lot at the waist. I don't anymore. One of the hardest things about making clothes to yourself is being honest about your body shape, because it doesn't matter what your head tells you is your ideal shape, the clothing will work the magic for you. If the clothing fits, you'll look good. Doesn't matter what shape you are. Bear in mind, on this style of bodice, the armhole is actually quite small. On a modern jacket, you would expect it to be down here somewhere. This doesn't actually give you any more movement than a very high arm, the opposite in fact. So the higher up you can comfortably put this, the better. I will tweak this when I actually make the mock-up and try it on, because I'll have to try this on over the other layers it's likely to go over. The adjustment I made was on the back. I left the back panel the complete width, and I moved the seam line on this curve so that basically we took fabric off the side and not off the back. The shape of the back is correct, and this is the correct seam shape for this garment. I didn't want to change that. I didn't want to bring these curves further in and straighten this out. I do want this sort of elongated diamond sort of a shape. Once this was taken in, it made all of this edge here kind of wibbly wobbly, so I've tidied that up. And the collar line at the back, I do have one issue with this mannequin, which is the sizes on the neck don't actually line up with my actual neck size, and I think this is a body proportion thing, because of course these mannequins are based on a standard body, but not necessarily my standard body. If it's a much taller person, for example, or somebody with a thinner neck or a bigger neck than me, well, proportions are going to be off a bit. So this will probably sit differently on me. I'll know when I try it on. Okay, that actually fits quite well. I know you can see my waistcoat sticking out of the bottom here. The waistcoat is ever so slightly longer than I want the waist to be on this jacket, so the fact the hem of the jacket is sitting where it is quite good. My natural waist is here, So this jacket body is a smidge long, but I've got seam allowance to take out. So if I take the seam allowance out, like so, my natural waist is here, and this is sitting in that sort of area. My belt's right here. So this is about right on the length. That means the problem I was having is actually the waist on the mannequin. You can adjust the length of the mannequin, so I need to just bring the waist down a little bit on the mannequin to match my measurements more accurately. It can take a while to get one of these set up. The lapels sit where I want them to. This doesn't feel tight on me. I can still, plenty of arm movement going on here. And you can see on the back, the arm eye cuts quite a long way in. And that's just the way that this works. But I really like on these the way they fit the curve of your back. And a lot of modern jackets, I find they are, I find they're kind of baggy and they just feel wrong around the waist. And then when you lift your arms, you get these weird mounting peaks with the shoulder pads and stuff. You don't get that with this. So, I'm happy with this as it stands. What I'll do is I'll make some sleeves from... I won't make some sleeves. Here's some sleeves I made that I've just noticed and forgot I'd made. So, yeah, the sleeves, they're not straight, they do have a curve to the outside edge, which matches up with your elbow. And they go on like so. So the sleeve pattern is good, the length is pretty good on these as well. I completely forgotten I made these. So I think we can comfortably say, once I've trimmed the little bits off that I've adjusted just now, this bodice is now ready for me to actually structure it properly. You can see how it's all bunching up and being weird. When I've got the structure in here, it won't do that sort of weirdness, because at the moment it's my waistcoat is grabbing the fabric and doing this with it. Yeah, that's not bad. Sleeves are on. I've trimmed all of the bodice down. I did trim just a bit off the bottom here, and I've adjusted the mannequin to make the waist a bit longer, so you can see this now actually fits much more like it does on me. When you're working with an adjustable mannequin, whether it's a male or a female one, try and get it set to your actual height as well as everything else, because it's almost like having a mirror without the faff of having to put the clothes on. So you can put everything on here and then you know what other people will see. Now the sleeves on these particular kinds of coats are slightly different to a modern sleeve. You don't have the shoulder pads at the top, they're a softer line for the shoulder, and the sleeves themselves aren't actually straight, they do have a curve to them. Now on some garments, Victorian dresses for example, you do have a more pronounced curve at the elbow than these have. But that's why, when you pin the sleeves on, they do stick slightly forwards. I think I probably need to just rotate this one round a little bit, but this is just mock-up, so we're okay. You can see there's a little bit of ease that goes into the sleeve cap, not much, and that just gives a bit of fullness around the shoulder for comfort. And the seam itself actually starts down here, rather than joining up at this seam, or, as it is with modern jackets, right down here. So it's a little bit different to get used to, but once you've actually pinned everything together, you end up with something that looks more like an actual body shape, whereas modern jackets tend to look more like something that is designed for a coat hanger, which is fine, but this fits better. Speaking of, let's put this on and see how it actually looks. Okay, bear in mind there are no structural elements in this at the moment. This is a mock-up, so it's a little bit wrinkly, it's not as smooth as it will be. Things like the sleeves, they're just a smidge long because we've got seam allowances going on here as well. But as you can see, it's not bad, you know? It's not particularly flattering at the moment. It's making me look a bit weird, but once we've got all the structure in, because at the moment what's happening is my waistcoat is, yeah, it's behaving like a Father Christmas pillow. Okay, there we go. It is full of pins, so I'm not standing very naturally here. I guess I keep getting stabbed every time I move. But you can see how my waistcoat at the moment is just bunching everything up. So when this is in a more structured fabric and it's got the lining and everything in, this will be a lot better. This fabric it's like a heavyweight shirt, so it's showing up a lot of imperfections. That aside, the actual shape of this is very good. I'm actually very happy with it. The sleeves themselves feel a good length. Now remember, they do have a seam allowance. If I just fold that away, there we go. So seam allowance taken off the sleeves, but you'll notice there isn't really any sort of gathering and puckering in this area, because the sleeve, when my arm's at rest, my arm isn't straight like that, which is what a modern jacket wants your arm to be. My arm's actually curved like that, and that's how these sleeves are designed to be at rest. So they're a bit more comfortable. The other thing is, unless you're somebody who has a slouch like this, these are actually more comfortable. If you stand with your shoulders slightly back, as I do, and these coats do encourage you to stand like that as well, the way that the sleeve caps work back here is a lot more comfortable. And I have got no problems with mobility. I can just move around. I can't do that in a modern jacket when it's done up. I just end up with shoulder pads here. So these are fantastic, and when it's got all the structure in, it's exactly the same. So that's another reason that I like these kind of clothes. They're designed to fit a human body, which I happen to have. I've spent a bit of time and I've pinned everything back together on this coat to give you an idea of what the whole thing looks like completed. My big problem at the moment is this red velvet I haven't been able to match, and I don't have enough of it from the original coat to remake it in the size I need it to be. I can reuse this section and the collar and the lapels. That's fantastic. I don't really need to do anything with those. They can just be used as they are. This cape is deliberately oversized for two reasons. One, look at it. Two, it actually does work quite well at keeping the rain off. These individual layers, it's sort of like one soaks and then it goes through to the next one, and so on. By the time it gets through to the bottom layer, if you've been out in the rain that long, you've got other problems. The collar at the moment is standing up as I want it to, so mostly upright with a bit of a turnover at the top. That's nice. When you wear it, this droops, so I need to put some strengthening in there. The other nice thing about this view is you get these lines for the seams coming down, and it gives you that structured look, and it really helps make the coat look more, I don't know, it just seems to work. You know, it doesn't look sloppy, it looks really nice and fitted from the back. I've just pinned the fur back on, and again, the cape sticks out, and this is where the contrast colours are important, because I want the contrast between this brown fur and the red velvet to really highlight the shapes that are going on. And again, this line of the lapels brings the waist in, pushes the shoulders out, and this height with the collar just helps sort of emphasise this shape up at the top. Combined with the very straight cut on the waist, it's quite a striking silhouette on this coat, and this is why I wanted to remake it. Of all the garments I've made over the years, with all of its flaws, this is easily one of my favourites. And I know this shape works on me, so I want to stick with it. So I'm going to have to see what I'm going to do about fabric on this, because, well, I have found red velvet, but every time I find it, it's a different colour when I get it to what it is in the pictures. And this is just, it's too pink. And it's not contrasty enough with what's there to look right. If I use this with what's here, it's going to look like I've pieced it. The body, I've got the fabric pattern done. Now, it's a bit backwards. Normally you make a paper pattern and then you make a fabric pattern and then you make a tidy paper pattern. I tend to pattern by draping rather than by pattern drafting because I'm not very good with numbers. So on this one, the purpley greeny fabric, that is actually my pattern for this coat, because that's the basic body, and I can now use that to build as many different coats as I want, which might be too much power for me. What I will be doing is transferring this cloth pattern onto some paper so I can put some notes on and make it clear what bits do what. It will also help me figure out how to make the pattern for the lining, which is going to be slightly different. Now then, the thing I like about this coat isn't just the front view, which is amazing. This fur section here and the cape sticking out and the very fitted body. I love this coat. It's the back view, which arguably is even better, because with everything being very fitted like to the body around this area and these seam lines here emphasising that, it looks pretty good anyway. And then you stick this cape on, which actually does a really good job of keeping the weather off, and it just emphasises it. And then you have the big collar on the top, and it's just amazing. I could gush about this coat all day long. The bottom part, it's a bit bustly, but I'm okay with that. It works for this coat. It needs a bit adding to the sides. I need more fabric. That's what it comes down to. I need to find suitable fabric for the outside and the inside, because I haven't got enough to make it how I want to make it. So the hunt is on with that.